Mojo in the morning. So big story came out right before the Super Bowl, and it affected us locally. We broke it to you on our social media, but I don't know if many of our listeners heard this. You guys all know the story about that balloon that kind of traveled across the country and then it was shot down a week ago. Well, this past weekend, there were three more unidentified things that they ended up going after. One was off the coast of Alaska and Canada. Another one, I think it was like in Montana or something. I don't know. And then this one in Lake Huron that everybody's talking about above Michigan, closed the skies of Lake Michigan. Let me play for you some audio. And then on the phone with us in just a second is Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin, who's going to talk to us about what she knows, having talked to some of our big officials with the Defense Department. This is Defense Department spokesperson Melissa Dalton talking about what was shot down over Lake Huron.
These most recent objects do not pose a kinetic military threat, but they're passed in proximity to sensitive DoD sites, and the altitude that they were flying could be a hazard to civilian aviation and thus raise concerns.
Wow. And General Van Herek, I believe is, I don't know, one of the generals. One of the generals was asked a question during the press conference yesterday by a news reporter of whether it was a balloon or possibly a UFO.
Hi, thanks, Pat, and thanks for doing this. This is for General Van Herk. Because you still haven't been able to tell us what these things are that we are shooting out of the sky, that raises the question, have you ruled out aliens or extraterrestrials? And if so, why? Because that is what everyone is asking us right now.
Hey, thanks for the question, Helene. I'll let the intel community and the counterintelligence community figure that out. I haven't ruled out anything at this point. We continue to assess every threat or potential threat unknown that approaches North America with an attempt to identify it.
Wow. So on the phone with us right now is Congresswoman Slotkin. How are you, Congresswoman? Welcome to the Mojo in the Morning Show.
I'm well. If you would have told me that we'd be talking about UFOs today, the day after the Super Bowl, I would have not had that on my bingo card. But
right.
Yeah.
How about UFOs in Michigan, of all places, right?
Well, in Michigan, I just have to say, as a representative of Michigan, we have an overabundance of people who already believed in UFOs, who already thought that there was stuff. I get this question all the time anyways. And so this is just going to, this is the next generation. And it's going to be nonstop, I think, for the next 20 years about UFOs now.
So we saw last night they did have a press conference, but they didn't really shed much light for the general public. Do you hear more information from the intelligence or military community that we don't get to hear, or are you still also awaiting more answers?
So it's a bit more. So, last week, frankly, we were still finishing up all the classified briefings on the balloon that we were all watching a week or 10 days ago. And I think, so they do come back around and bring us all together once they've picked up the wreckage, exploited it, put the intelligence community on it, and then can come back and say, okay, here's a bit more about what we saw. With these other objects, these three other things, they just don't know a ton right now because it's different than a balloon.
Yeah.
It does not look like a balloon. It doesn't seem to be the same thing at all. So they're hesitant, not because they know a ton about it, but because they don't know a ton about it. They hit it over Lake Huron purposely so that they could collect that wreckage, exploit it, and so it takes a few days to really understand.
And I heard that they're having trouble with gathering some of these the wreckage. That yesterday there were some issues with Lake Huron at the time. I guess the choppiness of it or whatever, so they couldn't actually gather, and they're going to go back today and do it. But fill us in a little bit on this, because I got to tell you something. I was never a conspiracy theorist. Now I'm a conspiracy theorist. I don't buy anything anymore. Like, anytime that there's something like this coming out, I'm like, what are they not wanting us to know about? Or what is it that it's like, look, there's something crazy going on here.
Well, and the Congresswoman knows this firsthand, because weren't you a grad student in New York City when the September 11th attacks took place?
Yeah, I was. And then, basically that day changed my life. I got into national security and I was recruited right out of grad school to the CIA. So this this is more my lane. It's really amazing how my Michigan life and my national security life has kind of come together in these objects. I will say, I think we certainly need to understand what is going on, because what's different is stuff flying over the homeland.
Yeah.
We don't like that. No country likes that, and certainly Americans don't like that. I think it's giving people a different feeling, a different perspective about our relationship with the Chinese government. But what we don't know right now is exactly kind of who sent those things, for what purpose. That's the intent part of national security is really important. Why did they send these things? But I would hold back going full conspiracy theory right now, because I think the truth is this is a new thing for us with the Chinese government in particular, and we need to figure it out rather than something we're hiding.
In this one, compared to the other three that were out there, is a little different because it was low enough that they believe that it could have actually caused issues for some of the aircraft that was flying. So that's scary.
I think the balloon was one thing, and then these three other objects seem to be, at least at first blush, more similar to each other, and they're not balloons. So, but it was flying lower. It was a threat to airspace. I mean, anytime you have something like that in an area that's well trafficked, certainly something flying over the country is trying to pick up something. It's trying to see something, so you don't like it going over our military bases. So we're glad that it was swiftly brought down. But I think this is to me, a new step unfortunately, in escalation with, particularly if we confirm it's from the Chinese government. We don't overfly each other's countries so brazenly like this. We don't test each other like this. So it's definitely new.
So Representative Elissa Slotkin on with us right now. We're talking about this, whatever object that was flying, over Michigan and Canada. But I wonder your thoughts on this. Do you believe that we should have shot down that first one faster, or do you think that we should have not? Because now it seems like we're really going after these things, the moment that we find them, which honestly I like better than waiting for it to kind of travel across the country.
Yeah, so here's the thing. When we had I'm on the Armed Services Committee, we had a ton of unclassified and classified briefings on the balloon. We had a former 4-star general who was in charge of the Asia-Pacific region come in and testify. And I agree with the decision. Once we understood very quickly that it wasn't a threat to people on the ground. There was no ordnance on it. They weren't going to drop a bomb on someone's head. And then I'll be honest, we can't talk about it much, but there are tools to disable this kind of thing even before it. Right? We have ways of neutralizing these kinds of things before.
But I thought we didn't know that there was. I thought there was explosives that was on that thing. No. There was no explosives, so that report was wrong.
No, they neutralized it. It was largely looks like it was for surveillance. It traversed the country, and they purposely wanted to get it away from population centers when they brought it down. We all appreciate that. But more importantly, as an intelligence officer, you want that stuff. Right? You want the wreckage. They did it purposely in an area of relatively shallow water where they knew they could pick it up. And that's how we know, and have information we can exploit. So I agreed with that decision because I they're up to.
Yeah, I guess the shocking part, Congresswoman, is the fact that we just assume the intelligence community and our military is always watching, keeping guard. And when they found that first balloon, and all of a sudden they started to do some study on some data and realize, there's been a bunch of balloons over the past few years. And then you start to go, wait a minute, weren't we always watching the sky? Like, wasn't somebody...
Explain that to me, because they tried to, all of a sudden, what Spike just said, then they threw the Trump's people under the bus, saying that we had it during Trump's people. They said they didn't know about it. How does the president of the United States and the people that work for him not know that there were balloon sightings? How does that happen?
I honestly cannot speak to how big a deal it was or was not in the last administration. I just know that this is not, look, you have NORAD, which is basically the U.S. and Canada sitting together in Colorado Springs, who are protecting all of North America. That's their joint mission together. They sit there and they look at a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'll just be honest, I just don't think they were focused on a lower altitude balloon.
I thought NORAD was just around just to tell us where Santa Claus was.
I know, that's the
Christmas.
only time you hear about NORAD. Seriously.
Luckily, that's the only time.
I do have to be honest with you. I'm kind of shocked that this thing gets shot down and Justin Trudeau comes out and speaks, but we haven't heard from the president on this.
Yeah, I think given all the hubbub over the weekend, I mean, my guess is we're going to be hearing from the president pretty
Today?
soon. That you don't have this many objects flying overhead. Now, I think they want to get their story together and want to be able to tell more information to the public, to help with those conspiracy theorists. But I would be surprised if we didn't hear from them.
Tim says he saw it. You saw this thing, Tim?
Yes. Am I on the air?
Yes.
Yes. This is what scares me. Whenever you ask if you're on the air, it makes me think you're going to say something goofy. I got my finger on the dump button. Go, Tim.
Yeah, well, actually, I just wanted to kind of let your audience know some background information because I don't think we put enough thought into this because you don't hear about it on the mainstream media. But you have to think about what's not been in the media and the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Who is responsible for that?
Oh, okay, all right.
But here comes the conspiracy.
Listen, did you see the balloon or not see the balloon?
No, listen.
I don't want to get into the whole political thing. I want to know if this balloon was coming.
Psychological operation by our government.
Okay.
Let's ask Representative Slotkin.
This is what happens.
Representative.
In the absence of actual information, it becomes a vacuum where then people try and fill in the conspiracy theories.
In Congresswoman, this is why I think our government needs to come out. I want to hear the president speak on this. I want to know what's going on.
Yeah, I have been expressing that to my Department of Defense colleagues. We were talking quite a bit yesterday, as you can imagine, and they were being very judicious. They want to say anything wrong, and I said, yeah, but the absence of information also creates a problem, right? It's not just so there is. This is clearly confounding Washington. It's new, and again, if we confirm that these things have been sent by the Chinese, I don't know that for sure right now. These new objects. It's a different moment in our sort of relationship. They are clearly testing us. Flying over the homeland is not a normal thing.
Yeah. And a lot of people are talking about last night. There was something going on last night. I'm not quite sure if you were aware of.
So a lot of people saw strings of lights over Metro Detroit last night. That was this Elon Musk's Starlink satellite service. That's a regular thing that flies over us every few months. Yeah.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah. And
so many text messages about that. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people mistake that to be like a UFO or something because it is so odd to see this string of 15 or 20 bright lights in a row.
I had food coma from Super Bowl, so I was.
Me too. Those nachos.
All right, Representative Elissa Slotkin, you're going to get the answers for us and come back to Mojo in the morning and tell us, right?
Sounds good.
Thank you. Thanks for going on with us. Appreciate it.